Bonjour les amis, I'm back again today because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about retell versus translation, or sorry, translation versus retell.
Bonjour les amis,
what it
I'm
means.
back again
Hold on just a
today,
second.
because I wanted to talk to you a little.
Hold on, I'm sorry les amis. It's my video is, there we go. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you today about retell or translation versus retell. What does that mean? Translation, and what does it mean retell? And I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about using stories to teach language. So I'm going to read you a little story in French, just a real simple one called Comment ça va petit panda? But before we do that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit. What does this mean that Bon Voyage French School is a no translation school? What exactly is translation, and does it mean no English? So let me talk to you about this. So the first thing is what is translation? So translation, in my definition, is taking a word or a sentence and translating it or putting it into a word or a sentence in another language. So taking something that is said in French and saying it exactly, translating it exactly as it would be said in English or vice versa. So if I said, for example, un chat is a cat in English. Un chat, a cat. Okay, so that's translation. Or un chat est, le chat est petit. Okay, the cat is small. So why doesn't this work? Why doesn't translation work, and why shouldn't we use translation to teach language? Translation doesn't work because it makes you rely on your native language in order to speak the new language. So instead of opening up those connections and circuits in the brain to build new connections, it actually doesn't access that part of your brain at all. It just adds an extra step to speaking. So I want to say this in French. I have to say it in English first, and then I have to think about, okay, how do I translate it? The second reason why translation just does not work is because not everything can be translated, right? We have words and expressions and figures of speech and all of that in English that just don't translate into another language. And so you really, I mean, a lot of translation, like when you're watching a movie or when you don't speak a language, you're watching a foreign film, or you're watching, because I watch a lot of like German shows. I love German shows, but I don't speak German. So I have to watch either the French or the English translation. And, you know, a lot of it doesn't translate. And a lot of times I have to watch French movies with English translation if I'm watching them with my husband because he doesn't speak French. So, and I noticed that they have to like get around certain things because they just don't translate. So that's why translation doesn't work. Now, no translation does not mean no English, okay? I use English a lot, actually. And the flow method in which I am certified and trained actually uses the native language of the speaker a lot, but not to translate. We use English to explain. We use English to make word associations. We use English to kind of help build those connections and help build grammar, because a lot of times grammar needs explanation, okay? The other thing that I use English for is retell. Now, retell is different than translation. Retell is showing comprehension in the native language. So, for example, if I read a story in French to my class, I'm not asking them to translate, I'm asking them to retell. The reason why is because I want to see if they understood. When we're learning language, we spend a lot of time listening and imitating sounds. And a lot of times we understand what's being said way before we know actually how to respond. Even when we're babies and, you know, babies will understand what you're saying. You'll be like, baby, smile at me. And the baby goes, ah, you know, because the baby knows how to respond in his or her own way, but can't necessarily respond with language. And so that is what I'm trying to get across, is that a lot of times my students, they understand what I'm saying to them, they know how to respond, but they respond in English, and that's okay. That is completely fine. That is not translation. So that's fine, because that tells me that the students are understanding and it's getting into their brains. Now, I am going to read a story to you. It's a simple story. This is one of my first year stories. I use stories in all of my levels of French. I use stories with my adults. I use stories with my elementary school kids, and I use the same stories. I use stories a lot of times that have a lot of pictures. I use simple stories that go with the vocabulary and the grammar structures that we're using. Stories are a great way to learn what we call, to get a lot of what we call comprehensible input, which is things that we can understand. We can't necessarily respond to them, but we can understand them and get that language into our brains and open those circuits, okay? So I'm going to read you a story. It's called Comment ça va, petit panda? And I'm going to read it to you in French. I'm going to read it to you the way that I read it to a class. And then I want you, those of you who watch this, to respond to me and retell me the story. Tell me what happens, okay? And this is what I do with my classes too. I'm like, tell me what happens. Tell me what happened in the story. That's not translating, that's retell. Okay, so we're gonna do this. Ready? Here we go. Ça c'est petit panda. Petit panda. Panda, d'accord? Petit panda a un tricycle. Il a un tricycle. Voici un tricycle. Tricycle. Petit panda a un tricycle. Voilà, tricycle. Un joli tricycle rouge. Un joli tricycle rouge. Tricycle rouge, c'est la couleur. Ici, tricycle rouge. Là. Voyez, rouge. Rouge. Remember yesterday we learned rouge with our poisson rouge song, right? Je suis un poisson rouge, j'ai perdu ma couleur. That one, okay? Ça va. Il est content. Ça va bien. Ça va bien. Yeah, ça va bien. Petit panda est content. Content. Il est content. Ouais. Alors. D'accord, Junior, bonjour. Alors ensuite, donc petit panda est content. Alors ensuite. Oh, tiens, voilà. Un ourson. Ça, c'est un ourson. Un ourson. Ourson. Que petit panda ne connaît pas. Oh, un ourson que petit panda ne connaît pas. Petit panda est étonné. Oh, il est étonné. Oh, il n'a jamais vu cet ourson. Il n'a jamais vu. Mais qu'est-ce qu'il fait, cet ourson? Oh, il veut prendre le tricycle de petit panda. Il veut prendre le tricycle de petit panda. Oh non! Petit panda est en colère. Il est en colère. I would be too. I would be too for sure. Okay. Ensuite, le vilain ourson a pris le tricycle. Ça ne va pas, non. Ça ne va pas. Ça ne va pas du tout. Non, ça ne va pas. Petit panda pleure, il pleure. Petit panda pleure. And through all this, I would be asking students to do this with me. So tout le monde, pleurez, s'il vous plaît. Pleure. Alors, petit panda est triste. Il est triste. Can you show me how you're triste? Petit panda est triste. Il est triste. Oh, le papa, c'est le papa de l'ourson. Le papa de l'ourson rend le tricycle. Il rend le tricycle. Donc, l'ourson a pris le tricycle et le papa rend le tricycle. Il rend le tricycle à petit panda. Petit panda dit tout bas, merci, merci. Petit panda il est intimidé. Can you show me intimidé? Intimidé. Il est intimidé. Hop! Petit panda est reparti. Il est reparti. Oui, oui, il est reparti. Mais dans la grande descente, oh là là, le tricycle va trop vite, ça va trop vite. Vite, 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 vite. Show me, everybody. Vite, 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 vite. Le tricycle va trop vite. Oh là là, petit panda a peur. Oh, il a peur. Oh, everybody show me peur, peur. Oh, petit panda a peur. Oh, petit panda n'est pas tombé, les amis. Les amis, tomber, c'est... Ah! Ça, c'est tomber, tomber. Il n'est pas tombé. Il n'est pas tombé. Ça va, oh, ça va très bien, ça va très bien. Il est très content. Petit panda est un champion. Wouh! Il est un champion du tricycle. Wouh! Petit panda est fier. Il est fier. Oh, je suis fier. Je suis fier. Tell me, what has made you feel fier in the past? What has made you feel fier in the past? When you accomplish something big, that is when you feel fier, right? Okay, so this is a little example of how I use a story in class to teach. And what I'd like you to do now, for those of you who are watching, go ahead and see if you can retell the story to me. Type it in the comments down below there. What happened in the story? Can you retell the story to me and what it was about? And tell me a time when you felt fier. Tell me when you felt fier. Oh, fier. I'll tell you a time when I felt fier. A time, fier, because I'm a girl, right? So I'm going to use the feminine version of that, fier. A time when I felt fier is when I passed my National Board Teacher Certification, not once, but twice. That made me feel very fier. Okay, so tell me, if you're a boy, tell me a time when you felt fier. And if you're a girl, tell me a time when you felt fier, and then retell the story to me. Okay, merci beaucoup. I hope you enjoyed this little French lesson using a story to learn language. Join me next time. I'm still planning on doing my verb lesson at some point. I'm just trying to work up to that because I keep getting all these ideas. I'm the type of person that gets all these ideas in my head and then I want to do them all. So I will get there. But if you have any questions, please let me know. Friday, tomorrow, is the last day to enroll for winter semester. So I hope to see some of you in class this next week, okay? Au revoir. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.